Australians as the antecedent of the conditional, right? I'm saying for every x in the universe, if you are one of these, then, right, for this to be true, this means this also has to be true, right? Propositional function conditionals are false when it's true, hook, false, right? So this would be false if there was an Australian that was not a surfer. If there was a individual, right, a substitution instance of this x, this propositional function would be true, would be false if there was something which was both an Australian and not a surfer, right? For which this was true and this was false. If there was an A, which was AA, but not SA, some individual A, right? Which is what we want. We want it to be, right? We're ruling out those things. To say all Australians are surfers is saying that there are no such things. There are no things which are Australians and not surfers, right? So that's why the universal goes with the hook, right? Compare what she says very minimally at the top of 235, explaining the form. But that's it. That's the logical form of it. That's why you get it. I think those two thoughts that I went through are the main things you need to get to grasp why universal inclusive categoricals take as their logical form, universal inclusion categoricals take as their logical form for all x, subject class, hook, predicate class. Okay? So that's for all x, ax, hook, sx over there. The E form, no Australians are surfers, is same thing but with a negation here, right? It's going to be for all x, if x is Australian, then it's excluded from the predicate class. All right, so read it again off the diagram. No Australians are surfers. I said, what does it mean to say that no Australians are surfers? No S's are P's, using S and P as subject class, predicate class. No Australians are surfers. None in the subject class are included in the predicate class. I'm saying this section is empty, right? I'm saying that if there are any individuals or any beings in the subject class, they've got to be in this section, the section excluded from the predicate class. None of the subjects are the predicates. None of the S's are P's. So if there are any S's, they've got to be in this section, excluded from that section. So what's the logical form of this? It is, for every x, so these are Australians, these are surfers, for every x, if x is an Australian, then x is not a surfer, right? Isn't that what we get from this? For all x, if x is Australian, then x is not a surfer, okay? So that's our logical form. Sorry, that's ugly, but for all x, if x is A, then x is not S. Clear here. This is the E form now. All right. Okay, so those are the logical forms of the A, E, I, and O. And as I say, the really important thing to take home is the basic logical forms of them, right? Because when you're symbolizing English sentences, this is what you get in the last section of Unit 12, and that is elaborated at length for Unit 13. When you're symbolizing English sentence, they recommend a three-step procedure. Identify the form of the categorical, right? Identify it as A, E, I, or O. And the point of saying that, like what I was saying before, referring back to sentential logic at the end of the last part, at the end of part 5, if it's a conjunction, right, you put that conjunction down first and then do the parts, so you've got the actual proper form that is a conjunction in place when we were symbolizing in sentential logic. Similarly here, right, when you're symbolizing categoricals, identify the form of the sentence first. Is it universal inclusion? Is it universal exclusion? Right? And then write that form down. If the categorical is a universal exclusion, the first thing you write down is this form, right? For all x, right, and then a propositional function, a conditional, and a negation, right? That is the form of universal exclusion. And then pick out the subject and predicate class and symbolize the subject and predicate. And that's going to be sort of easy for the ones in Unit 12, where we're only working with simple subjects and predicates, but in Unit 13 we've got complex subject and predicate, right? So the subject's going to have it's going to be, in brackets, something with conditionals, or conjunctions, or disjunctions, and all sorts of stuff, right? And the predicate's going to be the same. We're going to have complex subjects and predicates that require compound or complex formulas, right? But the point is, identify the overall form first, because you want your final answer to be a hook with the major operator here being a universal, and the major operator here being a hook, right? Or if it's something that requires an existential, right? If it's particular inclusion or exclusion, you want to have your final answer, no matter how complex it is, no matter how complex this formula is and that formula is, you want your final answer to be an existential statement where the propositional function you're quantifying over is a conjunction, right? So you're probably going to be in error. I mean, not absolutely necessary. These are going to be legal, logical forms, but you're not going to have too many sentences, and these are not categoricals. You're not going to have too many sentences where you've got the major operator here being a dot, right, with a universal. You're not going to have many existential statements, right? These are not the logical forms of categoricals, right? These are, right? Universal with a hook, existential with a dot. Those are two of them, and then negation, you do or you don't negate the predicates. If you negate the predicates, you've got the other two forms, okay? If these are your symbolization for an English sentence, it's probably wrong. Not necessarily, but think of how strong this one is and how weak this one is. This says, for every x in the universe, both of these predicates are true of it, right? Unless it's a statement of physics, as we said in Unit 11, it's probably not going to be the case. Certainly not categoricals, right? All Australians are surfers. You want to limit the assertion, positive content of the assertion to Australians. You do that with a hook. That's why the universal goes with a hook. And so that's very strong. It's saying everything in the universe is such that these two predicates hold of it. This is something very weak. There exists some one thing such that if this is true, then this other thing is true, which is going to be made true by any one thing for which the antecedent doesn't hold. So the first one's way too strong, next one's way too weak, which is why usually hammer it into your brains. Universal goes with a hook, existential goes with the dot.